Africa's current situation is shaped by a combination of historical, political, economic, and social factors. Understanding these elements requires an exploration of colonial history, governance challenges, economic struggles, conflicts, social development, environmental issues, and external influences. 1. Colonial history and its legacy. The impact of colonialism on Africa cannot be overstated. From the late 19th to mid-20th centuries, European powers carved up the continent, establishing artificial boundaries and extractive economies that still affect Africa today. Arbitrary borders. One of the most damaging consequences of colonial rule was the creation of borders that ignored ethnic, linguistic, and cultural divisions. European powers divided Africa at the Berlin Conference of 1884-85, with no African representation. This led to nations where rival ethnic groups were forced to coexist, while other ethnic groups were split across multiple countries. The result has been decades of internal conflict, civil wars, and instability. For example, 1. Nigeria is home to over 250 ethnic groups, leading to tensions between the Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa Fulani communities. 2. The Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, contains over 200 ethnic groups, contributing to ongoing political instability and violent conflicts. Extraction economy. Colonial powers focused on exploiting Africa's natural resources, creating economies dependent on raw material exports. Instead of fostering local industries, colonial governments built infrastructure solely for the benefit of extracting commodities like gold, diamonds, oil, and rubber. Even after independence, many African nations continued to rely on raw material exports, making them vulnerable to global price fluctuations. This dependence has hindered the development of manufacturing and technology sectors, keeping Africa's economies largely underdeveloped. Weakened governance. Colonial rule left African nations with weak institutions. European governments provided little preparation for self-governance, leaving behind political systems that were either highly centralized or poorly structured. Many newly independent nations lacked experience in democratic governance, leading to military coups, authoritarian regimes, and political instability. 2. Political instability and corruption. Since independence, political instability and corruption have hindered Africa's progress. Many nations have experienced coups, civil wars, and long-standing authoritarian regimes. Military coups and authoritarian rule. The instability caused by weak post-colonial governance often led to military takeovers. Leaders who promised reform frequently became dictators themselves, suppressing opposition and holding on to power for decades. Examples include 1. Mobutu Sese Seko, DRC, who ruled for over 30 years through corruption and repression. 2. Idi Amin, Uganda, whose brutal dictatorship led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands. 3. Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe, who clung to power for nearly 40 years, contributing to economic collapse. Corruption. Corruption remains a major obstacle to development in Africa. Embezzlement of public funds, bribery, and mismanagement drain resources that could be used for healthcare, education, and infrastructure. 1. Nigeria has lost billions of dollars in oil revenue due to corruption. 2. South Africa has faced major corruption scandals involving high-level politicians and state-owned enterprises. 3. Economic challenges and global trade inequality. Dependence on raw materials. Many African economies rely on commodities like oil, gold, and cocoa. This makes them vulnerable to global price changes. When prices fall, national economies suffer, leading to job losses and financial crises. Debt and aid dependence. Many African nations took loans for infrastructure projects, but some struggle to repay debts, leading to economic dependence on foreign aid. 1. The DRC and Mozambique have high debt burdens that limit their ability to invest in development. 2. Some Chinese-funded projects have been criticized for putting African nations in a debt trap. Unfair trade practices. 1. African nations face high tariffs when exporting goods, while wealthier nations flood African markets with cheap products. 2. Foreign corporations exploit Africa's resources, repatriating profits without significant reinvestment. 4. Conflict and security issues. Africa has experienced numerous conflicts due to political instability, ethnic divisions, and resource competition. Civil wars and ethnic tensions. 1. Sudan and South Sudan have been embroiled in conflicts over ethnic and political issues. 2. Ethiopia's Tigray War has highlighted deep-rooted political tensions, terrorism, and insurgencies. 1. Boko Haram, Nigeria, and Al-Shabaab, Somalia, continue to destabilize regions. 2. The Sahel region faces increasing terrorist activities, affecting Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. 5. Health and education challenges. Healthcare struggles. Africa faces high disease burdens and weak healthcare infrastructure. Malaria, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis remain significant health threats. 1. Limited access to clean water and sanitation exacerbates health issues. 2. Many rural areas lack hospitals and trained medical staff. Education barriers. 1. Many schools lack funding, leading to low literacy rates. 2. In some areas, girls face significant barriers to education due to cultural and economic factors. 6. Climate change and environmental issues, drought and desertification. 1. The Sahara Desert is expanding, reducing arable land. 2. East Africa experiences recurrent droughts, threatening food security. Deforestation and wildlife loss. 1. Illegal logging and poaching harm biodiversity and tourism economies. 2. Coastal cities face flooding due to rising sea levels. 7. External influence and exploitation. Foreign investment, help or exploitation. Foreign powers continue to shape Africa's economy and politics. 1. China builds infrastructure, but has been accused of creating debt dependency. 2. The US and Europe provide aid, but often with political strings attached. 3. Multinational corporations extract resources but reinvest little locally. The positive side. Africa's growing potential. Despite these challenges, Africa has enormous potential. Economic growth and innovation. 1. Countries like Rwanda and Ghana are investing in technology and entrepreneurship. 2. Africa's startup ecosystem is growing, particularly in fintech and mobile technology. Youth and demographic dividend. 1. Africa has the world's youngest population, driving innovation and change. 2. Young entrepreneurs are creating solutions tailored to local challenges. Regional cooperation. 1. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, aims to boost intra-African trade. 2. More countries are adopting policies for sustainable growth and governance reforms. Conclusion. The road ahead, Africa's challenges are deeply rooted, but so is its potential. Overcoming these issues requires strong leadership, economic diversification, and sustainable development. By investing in infrastructure, education, and governance, Africa can shape a brighter future.